Hey there, we're on day 231 of our Through the Bible in 1 Year. Taking a break from Jeremiah, because this is a chronological version in the events which its stories occurred. And they have us reading a couple of chapters in 2 Kings, and then I think a chapter in Chronicles 36, which will probably tell similar stories, but this is kind of fill you in as what was happening while Jeremiah was writing all his prophecies. Right? Jehoiakim's rebellion and death. During Jehoiakim's reign, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, attacked. Jehoiakim became his vassal for 3 years, and then he turned and rebelled against him. The Lord sent Chaldean, Aramean, and Moabite and Ammonite raiders against Jehoiakim. He sent them against Judah to destroy it, according to the word of the Lord had spoken through his servants and prophets, Jeremiah. Right? Indeed, this happened to Judah at the Lord's command to remove them from his sight. It was because of the sins of Manasseh, according to all he had done. Yeah, he was a horrible, horrible king. It sacrificed his own kids, right, to Satan, Baal. And also because of the innocent blood he had shed. He had filled Jerusalem with innocent blood, and the Lord would not forgive. Right? Manasseh killed so many people, the blood was flowing in the streets like rivers. Okay? Probably the worst of all of the kings. The rest of the events of Jehoiakim's reign, along with all his accomplishments, are written in the historical record of Judah's king. Jehoiakim rested with his fathers, and his son Jehoiachin became king in his place. Keep it in the family, huh? Now the king of Egypt did not march out of his land again, for the king of Babylon took everything that belonged to the king of Egypt, from the brook of Egypt to the Euphrates River. Judah's king Jehoiachin. Jehoiachin was 18 years old when he became king and reigned 3 months. 3 months in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Nehushta, daughter of Gad from Jerusalem. He did what was evil in the Lord's sight, as his father had done. Right. Deportations to Babylon. At that time, the servants of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, marched up to Jerusalem, and the city came under siege. The king Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon came to the city while his servants were besieging it. Jehoiakim, king of Judah, along with his mother, his servants, his commanders, and his officials, surrendered to the king of Babylon. So the king of Babylon took him captive in the eighth year of his reign. He also carried off from there all the treasures of the Lord's temple and the treasures of the king's palace, and he cut into pieces all the gold articles that Solomon, king of Israel, had made for the Lord's sanctuary. Cut him into pieces, just as God had predicted. Then he deported all Jerusalem and all the commanders, all the fighting men, 10,000 captives, and all the craftsmen and metalsmiths, except for the poorest people of the land. No one remained. Nebuchadnezzar deported Jehoiakim to Babylon. Also, he took the king's mother, the king's wives, his officials, and the leading men of the land into exile from Jerusalem to Babylon. The king of Babylon also brought captive into Babylon all 7,000 fighting men and 1,000 craftsmen and metalsmiths, all strong and fit for war. The king of Babylon made that person, Jehoiakim's uncle, king in his place, and changed his name to Zedekiah. Zedekiah. Zedekiah had a lot of run-ins with Jeremiah. Judah's king Zedekiah. Zedekiah was 21 years old when he became king and reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Hamutal, daughter of Jeremiah from Libnah. Zedekiah did what was evil in the Lord's sight, just as Jehoiakim had done. Because of the Lord's anger, it came to the point in Jerusalem and Judah that he finally banished them from his presence. Then Zedekiah rebelled against the king of Babylon. Probably not a good idea, huh? Okay, chapter 25. Nebuchadnezzar's siege of Jerusalem. In the 9th year of Zedekiah's reign, on the 10th day of the 10th month, King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon advanced against Jerusalem with his entire army. They laid siege to the city and built a siege wall against it all around. The city was under siege until King Zedekiah's 11th year. 2 years, right? By the 9th day of the 4th month, the famine was so severe in the city that the people of the land had no food. Then the city was broken into, and all the warriors fled by night. by way of the gate between the two walls near the king's garden, even though the Chaldeans surrounded the city. As the king made his way along the route to Araba, the Chaldean army pursued him and overtook him in the plain of Jericho. Zedekiah's entire army was scattered from him. The Chaldeans seized the king and brought him to the king of Babylon in Riblah, and they passed sentence on him. And we read about this in Jeremiah. They slaughtered Zedekiah's sons before his eyes. Finally, the king of Babylon was blinded Zedekiah, bound him in bronze chains, and took him to Babylon. Imagine having all your kids slaughtered before you. Man, I can't even imagine that. I'd be ready to die. Jerusalem destroyed, just like God said. On the 7th day of the 5th month, which was the 19th year of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, Nebuzaradan. Wow. The commander of the guards, a servant of the king of Babylon, entered Jerusalem. He burned the Lord's temple, the king's palace, and all the houses of Jerusalem. He burned down all the great houses. The whole Chaldean army with the commander of the guards tore down the walls surrounding Jerusalem. Nebuzaradan, man, called him Neb, right? The commander of the guards deported the rest of the people who were left in the city, the deserters who had defected to the king of Babylon, and the rest of the population. But the commander of guards left some of the poorest of the land to be vine dressers and farmers. Okay, Jeremiah said he gave the poor people land. Now the Chaldeans broke into pieces the bronze pillars of the Lord's temple, the water carts, the bronze reservoir, which were in the Lord's temple, and carried the bronze to Babylon. They also took the pots, the shovels, the wick trimmers, the dishes, and all the bronze articles used in temple service. The commander of the guards took away the fire pans and the sprinkling basins, whatever was gold or silver. As for the two pillars, the one reservoir and the water carts that Solomon had made for the Lord's temple, the weight of the bronze of all these articles was beyond measure. One pillar was 27 feet tall and had a bronze capital on top of it. The capital, encircled by a grating and pomegranates of bronze, stood 5 feet high. The second pillar was the same, with its own grating. The commander of the guards also took away this guy, the chief priest, Zephaniah, the priest of the second rank, and the 3 doorkeepers. He took a quart of fish wood, but appointed over the warriors from the city 5 trusted royal aides, found in the city the secretary of the commander of the army, who enlisted people of the land for military duty, and 60 men from the common people, who were found within the city. Nebuzaradan, the commander of the guards, took them and brought them to King Babylon at Riblah. The king of Babylon put them to death at Riblah while in the land of Hamath. So Judah went into exile from its land. So all these people murdered them, put them to death. Wow. Gedaliah made governor. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, appointed Gedaliah, son of Achim, son of this, over the rest of the people he left in the land of Judah. When all the commanders of the armies, they and their men, heard that the king of Babylon had appointed Gedaliah, they came to Gedaliah at Mizpah. The commanders included Ishmael, son of this person, Jonathan, Cherai, I'm not reading those, sorry. They and their men. Gedaliah swore an oath to them and their men, assuring them, do not be afraid of the servants of the Chaldeans, live in the land and serve the king of Babylon, and it will go well for you. In the 7th month, however, Ishmael, son of this person, this and this and this and this and this, of the royal family, came with 10 men and struck down Gedaliah, and he died. Also they killed the Judeans and the Chaldeans who were with him at Mizpah. Then all the people, from the youngest to the oldest, and the commanders of the army left and went to Egypt, for they were afraid of the Chaldeans. Jehoiakim pardoned. On the 27th day of the 12th month of the 13th year, the 14th year, the 37th year of the exile of Judah's king Jehoiachin, in the year Evil-Merodach became king of Babylon, he pardoned King Jehoiakim of Judah and released him from prison. He spoke kindly to him and set his throne over the thrones of the kings who were with him in Babylon. So Jehoiakim changed his prison clothes and dined regularly in the presence of the king of Babylon for the rest of his life. All for his allowance. A regular allowance was given to him by the king, a portion each day for the rest of his life. Okay. Now let's read the whole thing over again, shall we? Chronicles. Just one chapter, so. King Judah's king Jehoahaz. The comic book Jehoahaz, son of Josiah, and made him king in Jerusalem in place of his father. Jehoahaz was 23 years old and became king and reigned 3 months in Jerusalem. You see, they gave him a different name, huh? The king of Egypt deposed him in Jerusalem and fined the land 75,000 pounds of silver and 75 pounds of gold. Judah's king Jehoiakim. Then Necho, king of Egypt, made Jehoahaz's brother Eliakim king over Judah and Jerusalem and changed Eliakim's name to Jehoiakim. But Necho took his brother Jehoahaz and brought him to Egypt. Wow. Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he became king and reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. He did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. Now Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, attacked him and bound him in bronze shackles to take him to Babylon. Also Nebuchadnezzar took some of the utensils of the Lord's temple to Babylon and put them in his temple in Babylon. Remember, it doesn't say where he slaughtered all of his kids in front of him, right? 2 other places it says that, so I'm going to believe that happened. The rest of the deeds of Jehoiakim, the detestable things he did and was found against him, are written in the book of Israel's kings. His son Jehoiachin became king in his place. Okay, King Jehoiachin, was 18 years old when he became king and reigned 3 months and 10 days in Jerusalem. He did what was evil in the Lord's sight. In the spring, Nebuchadnezzar sent for him and brought him to Babylon, along with the valuable utensils of the Lord's temple. Then he made Jehoiachin's brother Zedekiah king over Judah and Jerusalem. Judah's king Zedekiah. Zedekiah was 21 years old when he became king and reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. He did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, and God did not humble himself before Jeremiah the prophet at the Lord's command. Remember, he talked all about that. He also rebelled against King Nebuchadnezzar, who had made him swear allegiance by God. He became obstinate and hardened his heart against returning to Yahweh, the God of Israel. All the leaders of the priests and the people multiplied their unfaithful deeds, imitating all the detestable practices of the nations they defiled, and they defiled the Lord's temple they had consecrated in Jerusalem. Okay, the destruction of Jerusalem. But Yahweh, the God of their ancestors, sent word against him by the hand of his messenger, sending them time and time again. For he had compassion on his people and on his dwelling place, but they kept ridiculing God's messengers, despising his words and scoffing at his prophets, until the Lord's wrath was so stirred up against his people that there was no remedy. So he brought up against them the king of the Chaldeans, who killed their choice young men with the sword in the house of their sanctuary. He had no pity on young men or young women, elderly or aged. He handed them all over to him. He took everything to Babylon, all the articles of God's temple, large and small, the treasures of the Lord's temple and the treasures of the king and his officials. Then the Chaldeans burned God's temple. They tore down Jerusalem's wall, burned down all its palaces, and destroyed all its valuable articles. Okay? God doesn't care. He deported those who escaped from the sword to Babylon, and they became servants to him and his sons until the rise of the Persian kingdom. This fulfilled the word of the Lord through Jeremiah. And the land enjoyed its Sabbath rest all the days of the desolation until 70 years were fulfilled. Remember, God said 70 years they would be in captivity. The decree of Cyrus. In the first year, Cyrus, king of Persia, the word of the Lord spoken through Jeremiah was fulfilled. The Lord put it into the mind of King Cyrus of Persia to issue a proclamation throughout his entire kingdom, and also to put it in writing. This is what the King Cyrus of Persia says. The Lord, the God of heaven, has given me all the kingdoms of the earth and has appointed me to build him a temple at Jerusalem and Judah. Whoever among you of his people may go up, may the Lord God, his God, be with him. So, there you go. I think tomorrow we're going to do Habakkuk. And I don't know what's going on with Habakkuk. I have to do a little background research on that. So, there you go. Day 231 is in the books. So, did we do that? Yeah, we did. So, there you have it. Catch up on any miss. You want to say you got the whole Bible in a year? Give us a like if you think about it. And we'll keep going with this story in chronological order. It's like one long history lesson. So, there you have it. Till tomorrow, we'll do it again. See you then.